Hi, I'm Kitty Felde. Last week, our readers discussed The Moon Within by Aida Salazar. This week, we continue the conversation with the writer. Aida writes both prose and poetry, but let's start with the poetry part first. How long have you been writing verse? Have you been writing poetry since you were a small child?
Yes, actually, when I was in 5th grade, I did really well under the tutelage of this incredible teacher, Mr. Clark, my 5th grade teacher. And he was the first person to ever give me my own novel. I never owned a novel or never had read a novel. And so after I finished reading the first novel, I read a second and a third, and he just kept supplying me with books. And I fell in love with reading. And I did so well in his class that year that he gave me an award. And with the award came a book called Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. And he gave me a Parker pen. And back then, there were these kind of weighted pens that you could change the cartridges. They're very special. And so he gave me that pen. And in many ways, I think that was the beginning of my relationship to poetry, because it was Where the Sidewalk Ends is a book of poems. And so I learned through Shel Silverstein how to be funny and how to be economic and all of these wonderful things, and how to rhyme and how to play with language and all the beautiful things that he does in that book. And I started to practice. I used that pen all through high school to write my own poetry.
Poetry is much more musical in its language, not always, but if you're writing nonfiction, if you're writing essays, if you're writing prose, does your brain sort of have an off-on switch, or is it just a little mess in the middle there when you're putting pen to paper?
No, not at all. I find it very seamless. I strive for my prose to have a lot of poetic elements, lyricism, imagery, figurative language. Not so much economy, because that's one of the things about poetry that you can't have in prose. I mean, you can do short prose, but yeah, you get to expound a little bit. So it's a different kind of muscle, certainly, but I still strive to make sure that I bring to my prose all of the things that I know about poetry to strengthen it. I took a class called The Art of the Sentence, and thinking that, I want to strengthen my prose writing. And then I went, and she was teaching poetry, essentially. I was like, wait a minute, okay, that's what I know, that's what I do already. So it was a really interesting revelation.
One of the real strengths of this book, I thought, was the detail about Oakland and California stuff that I don't generally see in books. And you had mentioned how you had specifically wanted this book to be in this place, but tell me about the process of finding the right detail to include that really creates a specific sense of place.
Yeah, I wanted Oakland to be a kind of character in the story. And so I thought very deeply about the different things that make Oakland, Oakland, and what my children or a child in Oakland might experience. And I really kind of drew on that specificity. So like seeing the disparity in economics, the people living on the sides of the freeway, people going to work in beat-up cars or nice cars, or where people live in the hills as opposed to where my characters live in the flatlands. Those little details were all part of creating this world that I really wanted to not only kind of demonstrate or to depict, but really kind of I wanted people to feel as a character, as a part that informs this very special community that is very multicultural and multi-ethnic and multiracial.
Thanks so much, Aida. We have interviews with dozens of other writers at our website, bookclubforkids.org/writersonwriting. I'm Kitty Felde. Thanks so much for listening.